What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 58, and today is our special review recap episode of WWE Summerslam, which took place on Sunday evening on the WWE Network. I'm joined by two special guests. I'm joined by Heather and Chris, otherwise known as Half Decent. Hi, guys. How you doing today?
Very good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah,
Hello.
Very good. Hi, Heather. Hi, Chris. So we'll talk more to Heather and Chris very soon. But as usual, we'll throw out our social media plugs, so you know where to find us on social media. On Twitter, first of all, our Twitter handle is @withjohners_pod. So go and reach out to us on there. Instagram, that's instagram.com/wrestlingwithjohners. And go out and search for us on the Facebook page. We've got a Facebook group called Wrestling with Johners. And of course, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share and shout about this podcast. Shout about it to your friends and to your family. This is your only weekly NXT and NXT UK podcast that you need. So please spread the word, tell your friends and tell your family, and help this podcast continue to grow so that we can produce quality content for you each and every week. So once again, back to Heather and Chris. You recently got done watching SummerSlam. So looking forward to talking to you about it today. What were your kind of impressions of it coming out of it? Was it a good show? Somewhere in the middle? What did you think?
I really liked it, actually. I think, going into this one, we weren't sure. We kind of had mixed feelings about how good it would be. We've got our matches that we were really excited about, matches that we weren't very excited about, and I have to say that we were really surprised by some of the big moments that I'm looking forward to talking about in a bit.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mixed bag, wasn't it, going into it? Some of the matches were announced quite late, as you tend to get with a lot of WWE pay-per-views. It was a bit of a mixed bag. There were some matches that obviously jumped off the page that were definitely looking quite exciting, like Ricochet versus AJ Styles and the debut of the Fiend and the championship matches. But there were a few noticeable absences. No Samoa Joe, no tag matches at all on the pay-per-view, and no tag title matches with that as well. No Roman Reigns. So there were some big matches and some championships not being defended, and some tag teams and some it was interesting going into it. It was a different type of pay-per-view than we've had before, but usually they kind of throw everybody into it and all the names and all the matches, but it seemed a lot more condensed with a bit more of a streamlined card. But definitely it did have its positives going into it, and had lots of positives coming out of it, so I can't wait to talk about it. Chris, what about yourself? You're a keen wrestling fan and you do follow WWE. What were your thoughts going into SummerSlam before this weekend?
Yeah, I think you summed it up quite nicely. A little bit of a mixed bag in terms of some of the late announcements, and even the fact that Roman Reigns was advertised all the way up until the end, and then just removed for no reason. It does feel like there's almost not confusion, but definitely change in WWE and the way that they're doing things at the moment. And I think the result of the pay-per-view being a lot shorter, being a lot more streamlined, having matches that did matter, I thought was a big part of it. Some matches maybe didn't need people in there, but it was still good to see them anyway. Generally, overall, a good pay-per-view. Did benefit from being a lot shorter, I thought, which is they need to get really good at doing a 3-hour pay-per-view again, and then they can start trying the 4 and 5 hour ones.
Definitely, yeah. Well, I didn't watch it live. I saw it the following day, and I watched it when I got back from work, and it was done by bedtime. So it was all wrapped up within 3.5 hours. It was all, I'd say, nice. You didn't have to stay up too late to watch it, but it was a good show and a good length. But just to catch our listeners up on kind of future shows, future podcasts that we're going to be covering here. We're going to be having our weekly show each Thursday or Friday covering NXT and NXT UK, as we usually do on a weekly basis. But there are going to be some special shows coming up for our listeners. Friday the 30th of August, we've got our weekly NXT and NXT UK recap show. But on Friday the 30th of August, we're going to be doing a special NXT UK Takeover Cardiff preview show. And that's going to be the Saturday before our the big NXT UK takeover in Cardiff, which I will be going to, and we'll have Kieran Reid on that particular episode on Friday the 30th, giving a full rundown of not only that week's shows, but of the card that's going to be taking place at Takeover Cardiff, and all of our thoughts and feelings going into that big show. As I mentioned, I will be in Cardiff on Saturday the 31st watching Takeover Cardiff, and we'll be covering it on the podcast here on Sunday the 1st with David Anderson doing a full review show of NXT UK Takeover Cardiff. The following day, on Monday the 2nd, I'll be joined by Ash Crawford and Chris Thornton, where we'll be covering AEW's next pay-per-view, All Out, which is also taking place on the Saturday evening. So we won't be doing 2 podcasts on Sunday. One will happen on the Sunday, and the AEW show will be covered on the Monday. And then we'll continue with our weekly show every Thursday, Friday. But some big shows to look forward to there, some really big wrestling events. August has already been a pretty special month for wrestling fans. Like I say, this weekend alone, we had NXT TakeOver Toronto, and we're going to be covering WWE Summerslam now with some of the big shows to come later on in the month. So are there any kind of shows that I've just mentioned that you're going to be looking forward to seeing? Your thoughts on AEW, and will you be watching that, or NXT TakeOver UK? What's your thoughts on some of them shows yet to come up?
Oh yeah, we're actually huge AEW fans. So we're super psyched about All Out. And I think we would really have loved to go to NXT TakeOver Cardiff as well, had we not been so busy. Such is life. We're always doing something, so we weren't able to go to that. But that would have been also been a really, really cool event to go to.
Cool. And did I mention that we're now selling T-shirts? So you can now go to teespring.com, and you can have a look at our Wrestling with John's range of T-shirts and other merchandise there. And if you purchase anything from teespring.com before the end of the month, you can get 10% off your purchase. And to go directly to our store, go to teespring.com/stores/Wrestling with Johners, and like I say, any purchase before the end of August, you get 10% off of your purchase. I know Heather and Chris, you've got your T-shirts on their way, haven't you?
Yeah, we're really excited. We can't wait to put them on.
Yeah, really
excellent.
Excited. Really
brilliant. Well, thank you for that. So let's kick on. So we've got a 9-match card, I think. And the first match of the night was for the Raw Women's Championship between Natty Neidhart, Natalia, whatever you want to call her, against the man, the Raw Women's Champion, Becky Lynch. The last time we spoke about Becky Lynch was when the three of us did the WrestleMania review in April. And she's held on. She was Becky 2 belts then. She won both the SmackDown and the Raw Women's Championship that night in the main event at WrestleMania in New Jersey. She's still hanging on to the Raw Women's Championship. She's had a little bit of a feud with Lacey Evans over the last few months. But now she's up against Natalia. Now, Natalia won a gauntlet match, I understand, to kind of qualify or go forward in the number 1 contenders position for Becky's championship here. But I think another reason why she's wrestling against Becky Lynch is because she's a native Canadian, of course, and part of the legendary Hart family from Calgary. But was this a match you were particularly looking forward to going into it? How have you found Becky Lynch as the Raw Women's Champion since WrestleMania? And just give us your thoughts on this one before we kick into some of the detail.
Cool. So I would just briefly kind of say Chris and I were quite excited about this because obviously you've got 2 native Canadian women fighting in this pay-per-view, and then we were thinking, okay, well, they're not going to give it to both of them, are they? Like, what are they actually going to do? But I follow Natalia on Instagram, and I was certain before watching SummerSlam that she had won the match, and I was really excited because I was thinking, she's had a bit of a rough year. She has always been on the sidelines, compared to some of the other women. Someone who has helped Ronda Rousey train. She's there helping bring the other women up in the division, and I was really quite excited for this to be her moment. So surprised, I think, by the outcome. Chris, what do you think about how Becky's been, as a champion?
I thought she's done really well. I didn't particularly like Lacey Evans beforehand, but I do think that after the feud, you could see a lot of what made Lacey good. So I thought that Becky brought that out of Lacey Evans, and they really helped each other. I think it was right ending that feud when it did. It felt like it was a natural end, and that we'd almost seen everything that we would probably see.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then moving into bringing Natalya into it, I thought was also really good, because it meant that Becky is now going to start beating the people that are legitimate a bit more, because Lacey kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then after that, the feud was kind of reliant on Seth and Becky being together, which I'm never really too keen on that. It's like you should just be able to be a good champion by yourself. As much as it made for some entertaining TV, I think the best thing is for Becky to just go out there and keep having great matches with all the great talent across the roster. And
Which
it's good to see that Charlotte Flair's no longer in that picture either. She's got her own things that she's chasing and her own history that she's cementing. So I thought it was a good build up to what should have been a great match.
Yeah, so I must admit, I don't follow Natalya on Instagram like Heather does. I've never really been a big fan of Natalya, but she did look amazing as she entered for this match. I don't know if you noticed her jacket, which is kind of like spiky and mirror plated. So she did look fantastic for her kind of native Canadian fans. But to remember, this was a submission match as well, so it couldn't end via pinfalls. It was a submission match for the Raw Women's Championship, and Natalya, of course, has the infamous Hart family move, the sharpshooter, going up against Becky's disarmer. So just to go through some of the highlights of this match, Becky and Natalya starts the match by trading blows. Before Becky takes control of the match with her Bexploder suplex, Becky makes several early attempts to make Natty submit, but Natalya eventually manages to power out of Becky's offense. She then manages to swing the champ against the barriers at ringside. Then, in a unique bit of offense, Natty is somehow able to apply the sharpshooter while Becky is caught up in the turnbuckles. So usually you see it kind of on the ground, on the canvas. This was up in the ropes. She applied the move with Becky caught up in the ropes or in the turnbuckles. Becky makes a bit of a comeback and is able to drive Natalya into the steel ring steps and then into the announcer's table at ringside as she tries to get feeling back into her own injured leg. There's an awesome superplex spot from the top rope by Natalya, with both women landing really hard from that move. Both wrestlers apply each other's submission holds, with Becky applying the sharpshooter and Natty applying Becky's disarmer. Then there's a "This is awesome" chant from the fans in Toronto, and it was a really good match at this point. Then Natalya eventually applies the sharpshooter in the centre of the ring, but Becky is able to drag herself out of the ring to make the escape. Then Becky is able to apply her disarmer submission in the centre of the ring, with Natalya tapping out and giving the victory to the man to retain her Raw Women's Championship. So this was a better match than I thought it was going to be going into it. And in my opinion, this was one of Becky's better title defences since becoming the champion at this year's WrestleMania. All credit to Natalya, however, in this match. I'm still not her biggest fan, but she did really, really well, and both wrestlers brought out the best in one another. And I do hope that this is kind of a one and done. I wouldn't mind seeing them wrestle again, but I think Becky has bigger and better opponents ahead of her. But I'd love to know your thoughts on this one. So Becky Lynch still the Raw Women's Champion, and a good match, a good showing from Natalya. What are your thoughts? Start with you, Chris.
Yeah, strong match. It was good that the submission aspect of it made you feel that it could have went any way. Almost like if it was a normal match, maybe we would have seen a submission anyway. But I thought it was good to have that stipulation in there. All the spots you mentioned as well, really good. Particularly the sharpshooter on the turnbuckle. That was really good. I don't know if I've actually seen that before either. No. So it's good to know that a move that has such history can still be so new and unique, and she can put her own spin on it. Natalya, thought she came in looking in really good shape. Her stamina was excellent throughout. And putting that match first, I think, really did help get the crowd kind of pumped up. And it was one of the more vocal WWE crowds that we've seen a pay-per-view in a while that hasn't been NXT. So I thought that really helped add to this could be a good SummerSlam atmosphere. So great opening match.
Yeah, definitely. What about yourself, Heather?
Yeah, I completely agree on the atmosphere front. One of the things that we remarked on when we were watching it is just how excited we felt and how pumped up we felt by how the crowd were feeling and reacting to what was going on in the ring. So that was really cool. What I liked about this match, obviously with with the stipulation, with it being a submission match, I was really excited to see how innovative they were going to be with it, and really, really happy with how that came out. So that was really cool as well. It wasn't one of those stupid matches that was overdone. So many matches you watch, especially between female wrestlers, get catty, and I didn't think that this got catty. And I was really happy with how professional it was, and kind of how respectful of each other and each other's skills, really, and what each other has achieved.
There's a lot of really good wrestling in it.
Yeah, just really good wrestling. And, I haven't really seen that from Natalya before. Like I say, I follow her, but this is just, it's not necessarily like because I think she's the best wrestler ever. But today I was happy, and I thought, yeah, she potentially could be, higher up on the rankings. So I don't know if I would agree with you and say this is a one and done. Maybe this could turn into something quite exciting for both of them. I'd like to probably see a little something there. Maybe they end up teaming up to, get rid of Lacey or something like that. Something like that would make me really happy.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was half expecting the return of Ronda Rousey at some point during this match, because obviously you've got the connection there with Natalya and Ronda being, so-called best friends, or friends on camera at least. And then of course you got the feud from WrestleMania with Ronda and Becky. That didn't happen, but I think that Ronda is due a return hopefully soon. But it was a good match, good way to kick off the show. The crowd were very lively. Obviously, it was a sellout crowd at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. But yeah, definitely set the night, in a good light anyway. A good way to start the night. Then we get match number 2, Dolph Ziggler versus Goldberg. So before the match even starts, Dolph Ziggler grabs a mic, stating that you are looking at the best thing in pro wrestling, saying that Goldberg doesn't tend to show up for big matches. I think he's referring to his dismal match against The Undertaker in Saudi Arabia from a couple of months ago, and that Goldberg fears Ziggler. I've got to admit that Goldberg looked great as he kind of stormed out of his dressing room and marched through the arena to the stage. For a 52-year-old, I think he looked absolutely fabulous. To look at him, he doesn't look that much different to when he was in his prime 20 years ago. The match started kind of very, very briskly. Dolph almost pulls off an upset from the very beginning. He sent shockwaves even through the crowd as he gets 2 quick super kicks in for a couple of very quick pinfall attempts on Goldberg. However, Goldberg doesn't mess around. He nails Ziggler with a huge spear, followed by his patented jackhammer, covers and gets to 1, 2, 3, and the match is over in less than 2 minutes. For a split second there, the fans thought that there was a shock on the cards with Ziggler getting in a couple of quick super kicks to start the match. However, Goldberg had other ideas and only needed one opportunity to hit his spear and his jackhammer for the finish. After the match, Dolph Ziggler gets on the mic, once again saying that it was like getting hit by a baby, and Goldberg didn't have the guts to fight him like a man. That prompted Goldberg to turn around, re-enter the ring for one more spear. But that wasn't the end, as Ziggler grabs the mic, once again prompting Goldberg to come out for a third time and to run the ropes and hit a third and final spear. And like I say, despite Goldberg's 52 years of age, he looks great here and still has the best spear in the business, in my opinion, and has gone some way towards eliminating some of those tarnished memories of his dismal match against The Undertaker in Saudi Arabia a few months ago. So it was short and sweet. I thought both wrestlers played their part really well. Ziggler bounced around for Goldberg like only Dolph Ziggler can. But what were your thoughts on this one? It was a typical Goldberg match, you could say, over you blink and you miss it. But starting with you, Heather, what were your thoughts on this and Goldberg and Dolph Ziggler, Dolph Ziggler's antics on the mic to urge Goldberg to dish out more punishment?
Aptly named match number 2. I thought it was a bit of a number 2 match. Really, really disappointing. I love Dolph Ziggler and I really want him to be like a massive star. And that's probably because I really like an underdog, but I think he's been massively underrated for such a long time. Really, really talented guy. I'd probably like to see him make a move from WWE. I know he's just signed another contract for another year. So I'm not sure that that's going to happen, but interesting that he's giving himself, you know, a little bit of time and some options. And like you say, Goldberg really did have a lot to prove with his stinky match before with The Undertaker. So I'm really impressed with the work that he did, but just disappointed that it was a bit of a throwaway match as far as I'm concerned. It didn't really matter, you know, all the mouthing off in the world that Dolph could have done didn't take away from the fact that he was probably picked because he was a small guy, easy enough and light enough for Goldberg to pick up this time and not fall over and not embarrass himself.
Yeah, good point. What about yourself, Chris?
Yeah, there's probably some truth in, you know, there's a lot that they're going to try and redo to rebuild Goldberg as a big name. One of the things that I always do like about Goldberg and also Brock Lesnar as well is that there is just this anything could happen big fight feel to their matches, regardless of if that's early in the card or if it's the main event. And I do think that even though Dolph Ziggler was an easy opponent, we kind of expected something like what we saw, like a quick match. Even when it started, there was still that big fight feel. There was a feel of those, when those super kicks came in, that you thought, oh, okay, so we might see something different. And, you know, as long as they don't run through too much new talent using Goldberg still, then I don't really see a problem in it. Like, having something like that on the card is quite exciting. They probably pay him way too much money for the 2 minutes that they gave him for. I think he was paid over $500,000 for this SummerSlam. But if that's how they want to spend their money and bring the fans back, then they'll do it. It's a good fight feel to watch. And yeah, as long as they don't start using talent like Ricochet and AJ Styles and a lot of people that could really benefit with a push, which Ziggler could have benefited from a few years ago when he did well in Survivor Series. So, you know, it just seems like Ziggler's at that point now where he is gonna roll over for people and do a good job, because that's what he does. So yeah, I didn't really see a problem with the match. It was nice to have it on the card. It could have been there, could not have been. Didn't really matter, but at least it gave that big fight feel for a bit, and I can never really knock that, because seeing that is very rare these days.
Yeah, and I thought the way that Ziggler taunted and got back on the mic and kind of badgered Goldberg to go back in the ring and dish out more punishment. I thought it was, it did Ziggler some favours in terms of how he reacted to the loss and continued to taunt Goldberg after the match. But I think the only thing that would have been worse than this match if it had gone any longer, to be honest with you, I think that Goldberg should be used in just short and sweet matches. Let's move on to match number 3, and this is for the United States Championship. And it features AJ Styles versus Ricochet. So AJ Styles is accompanied to the ring, as always, by Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, all members of the OC, of course. There's an excellent spot at the beginning of the match where everybody's on the outside of the ring, and Ricochet uses Gallows and Anderson as stepping stones before executing a Hurricane Rana on AJ on the floor. Now, that was a pretty outstanding move, and in itself got a "This is awesome" chant. AJ then goes to work on Ricochet's left knee. However, even on one knee, Ricochet is still able to hit a standing shooting star press, getting a 2 count in the process. Styles bundles Ricochet to the outside and follows up with a drop kick through the ropes. Styles then is able to get a 2 count from a fireman slam neck breaker, so similar to the move that John Cena uses, the FU or whatever he calls it nowadays, but finishing off with a neck breaker, which looked pretty painful on the landing there. But it's Ricochet's knee that continues to cause him issues throughout this match. Ricochet does manage to get another 2 count from a twisting suplex before taking out Gallows and Anderson on the outside of the ring. Then, with Ricochet fighting Styles off on the top turnbuckle, he then attempts like a Phoenix splash. However, Styles is quick to react and somehow catches Ricochet mid-air, dropping him in like a powerbomb of sorts before applying the Styles Clash and gets the 1, 2, 3 after hitting the Styles Clash on Ricochet, retaining his United States Championship. So that was a really good match. It went 13 minutes. A little bit disappointing that Ricochet had to fight the entire match with an injured left knee. I understand that it was all part of the story of the match, which AJ Styles was able to capitalise on and eventually retain his championship after 13 minutes. Nonetheless, a good match, but I'm sure we haven't seen the last of these two in the ring together. Hand it over to you, Chris. Two really top names, two really athletic and very exciting wrestlers here. You obviously had the inclusion of the OC on the outside, and the injury that was dished out to Ricochet's knee early on in the match. But what were your thoughts on this one? Overall, it was a good match. Ricochet very nearly overcame the odds, but not quite in the end, and AJ retained his championship.
Yeah, I thought it was a great match. I love both these guys. Watch pretty much anything that they would do, and have been following AJ for years. I felt that recently in the WWE, he's definitely slowed down a lot, and his fighting style, if you watch a lot of his last matches and feuds that he's had, it has been the kind of find a body part and keep working on that. And I felt that this storyline kind of played towards that a little bit more. So I was a little bit apprehensive halfway through the match, and felt that it was kind of working towards AJ's slower type of fighting now. But that said, Ricochet, everything he did, absolutely incredible. And then in the last 10 minutes, I think they both really ramped it up. And the ending with the Styles Clash when he caught him was totally unexpected. I thought it was a really good way to do it, and yeah, I thought it was a great match overall. It was a really solid performance from both of them, and like you said, I don't think we've seen the last of them. The fact that there was interference from the outside and an injured leg means that we've got a lot more to see on this feud, and it could probably take us all the way to Mania if it is. I'd watch them fight that much that I wouldn't be surprised if it did.
Yeah,
I'd love
definitely.
That too.
What about yourself, Heather? What were your thoughts on this championship match?
Yeah, I really would like to see this feud continue. I think it would be awesome. I love how they're kind of turning AJ into a bit of a heel, with the club, with Gallows and Anderson. I like that. I feel like it's not something we've seen from him very much in the past, so it's quite a fun new angle. And as he's going to be in the WWE for some time to come, he's got a lot of time on his hands to play with and try out new styles and new moves and stuff like that. So I'm really happy with it. Always love Ricochet. Obviously with an injury, he can't do as much high flying stuff as you'd usually see from him. So it's a bit of here's a taste of what we can do. Let's give them something so that they want a bit more.
Definitely. I think there's a lot more in store between these two. But let's move into another championship match. This time Bayley defends her WWE SmackDown Women's Championship against Ember Moon. So I think, like many, to be honest with you, I've been a little bit underwhelmed by Bayley's championship reign. Maybe that's just me, but that's a general impression I get from others as well. But I was pleased to see Ember Moon here get a title shot. I've been a big fan of Ember Moon since her NXT days, and this in fact was Ember's first singles match on a WWE pay-per-view, and it happens to be a championship match as well, so good for her. Bayley is able to apply an inverted Boston Crab for an early submission attempt on her opponent. Moon is able to avoid a running clothesline to drop Bayley with a super kick, sending the champion to the outside. Ember then hits an impressive Hurricane Runner from the top rope on Bayley. Ember Moon then gets a close near fall from a modified code breaker to the face of Bayley. But after receiving a ton of punishment from Ember, Bayley is able to win the match with her belly to Bayley suplex from the second turnbuckle to retain her SmackDown Women's Championship. For what it's worth, I really enjoyed this match, mostly because of some of the innovative offense from Ember Moon, who presented a fresh and exciting opponent for a Women's Championship match on a major WWE pay-per-view. And I hope to see a lot more of Ember in the future. After this performance here against Bayley, she ended up on the losing end in this match. So Bayley retains. She's still the SmackDown Women's Champion. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, Heather. I'd say this is the second women's match already on this card. I think it's the second of three matches in total on this card. So what are your thoughts on Ember Moon versus Bayley as a match?
Get rid of Bayley. I've seen enough of her. Don't care about her at all. I know she's all like, my struggle. I'm talented, blah, blah, blah. All of that. Don't care. I've not invested in her, and I don't know what she has to do to make me care about her. Whereas Ember Moon, loved her, since the beginning in NXT. Really excited to see her get her first title shot. As soon as Bayley gets rid of the title and somebody a little bit more exciting, gets it maybe like a Sasha, you know, or something like that, then I would be really, really keen to see Ember take more of a center stage. She's probably a little bit too new to have it now, which is why she didn't get it, but at least the match offered enough impressive spots from both for everybody to see how cool she is.
Yeah, well, just to touch on your kind of a Bayley comment there, how would you react to Bayley if she were to turn heel? I know that a lot of people are saying that her character's quite stale. She's kept the same kind of happy-go-lucky babyface character now for many years, you know, dating back to when she was in NXT and was the NXT champion. And her character hasn't really changed that much, you know, in the last 5 years, you could say, if not longer. You know, for those of you that watch NXT and have recently seen the heel turn of Io Shirai, you've seen how effective that heel turn has been and how that's given Io a new dimension to her character. A lot of people are saying that a heel turn for Bayley might do wonders for her as well. What's your thoughts on that?
I would be interested to see it. I'm, you know, always open-minded. I'm obviously quite quick to judgment, and I think that's part of the fun of wrestling. that's what you're there to do. But I'm a huge fan of talent and integrity. Integrity is really important to me when it comes to wrestling. So I think someone with a story like Bayley's shouldn't kind of just do a turn to heel just because she's got no interest in her character. If her character really is who she is, and that's all a big part of it, then she just needs to make us believe it more and make us care about it.
There we go. Chris, your thoughts on this match?
Yeah, well, just a quick touch on Bayley is she is very much like John Cena, but without the Doctor of Thugonomics. So
that's what she needs.
A heel turn might not be as exciting as maybe just a complete character change. Yeah, you know, I'm a big fan of Ember Moon, and I do think, as much as I don't really like Bayley's character, she does know how to go out and put a match on. So, yeah, I'd like to see Ember Moon on more pay-per-views. It was a good introduction to her, especially on a pay-per-view for anyone that may only watch pay-per-views. They might not even know who she is. So I thought it was a good introduction there, and yeah, just more Ember Moon. Bayley can stay around. I'm not fussed either way. But
sorry, Bayley.
She can maybe a different character might work for her, but she you know, she's got a big fan base with the kids, and I think sometimes when you're an adult you forget that a large part of WWE's audience is kids, and that's going to keep her going for quite a while.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's going to be why she's so popular.
Well said, well said. So let's have a look at the next match. Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon. Now, the stipulation here is that if Kevin Owens were to lose, his career is on the line with the WWE, so he could potentially be gone if he were to lose here to Shane. So there's some huge support here from the Toronto crowd for Kevin Owens, as you would expect, with Owens sporting a Fight Toronto Fights t-shirt for his fellow Canadian countrymen. Shane introduces Elias as the special guest enforcer to help him officiate the match, setting up some obvious shenanigans for later on, I'm sure. Despite trying not to get distracted by Elias on the outside, Owens does manage to get in some offense with a running cannonball onto Shane in the corner of the ring. However, it's Shane who gets the first 2 count of the match with a float over DDT. Then, to the ire of the Canadian fans, Shane attempts to apply a sharpshooter. Elias then gets onto the ring apron to distract the referee before sliding a steel chair into the ring, enticing Owens to use the chair to get disqualified. However, Owens stays focused to nail a senton from the top rope, followed by a frog splash. But as he goes for the pinfall, Elias drags the referee out of the ring to stop the 3 count. The referee then gets knocked down to the floor, prompting Owens to finally use the chair on Elias before dumping him over into the timekeeper's area. The match does end when Owens stops himself from using the steel chair on Shane this time, but as he hands the chair back to the referee, and with the referee's back turned, Owens strikes Shane with a low blow, followed by a stone cold stunner, covers and gets the 1-2-3 for the win, and saves his career within the WWE after 9 minutes 20 seconds. So I thought this was a fun and well booked match, with Owens looking strong in front of his countrymen. I'd love to know your thoughts, Chris. Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon, with quite a bit of outside interference from the special outside enforcer Elias. I'll say the match was fun. Not really a match you could take too seriously, but Kevin Owens, he's kind of recently turned as a babyface. Obviously, he's in front of his Canadian countrymen, so he was always going to get cheered anyway. But how do you think this match went, and what do you think it's done for the characters leading out of this match?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I do always question whether Shane is needed on a pay-per-view card, though. He's almost become. I mean, he's now been on more pay-per-views than Roman Reigns this year, I think, just because of the exclusion of Roman Reigns on this one. And you do have to wonder about all the talent that is in the back if Shane is actually needed. I think I love Shane, and I think that what he does when he comes out, and it's great to see it coast to coast. It's great to see him kind of put his body on the line, and it shows how much passion he still has for the business that he doesn't need to wrestle in. But that said, I think his feud with Kevin Owens has actually been really good, and that they're a good matchup for each other. I like Kevin Owens so much that I want to see him in the big picture again. I want to see him fighting for the titles. I want to see him maybe even see him fight Brock Lesnar, or see him fight Goldberg and see what would happen. There's so many other things I think you could do with both people that I don't know if the match is necessarily needed. But that said, you're absolutely right. It was a lot of fun to watch, and you definitely need that on the pay-per-views as well. You need matches that necessarily don't matter, and matches that are just going to be fun. And I think they delivered that. And Elias always usually delivers that when he's Shane McMahon's henchman, especially. So it was a fun watch. It was really good.
Yeah, Heather, what about yourself, Heather?
I was really hoping that Edge would come out and be Kevin Owens' enforcer after he did a spear, didn't he, in the pre-show.
That's right.
That I read about and that I saw sneakily on Instagram before we watched it. So I was really, really excited, and I was like, oh, yeah, Edge is going to come back and it's going to be amazing. But he didn't. So it was kind of like a little bit biased in terms of in Shane's direction. So I thought that Shane might win. I thought, Kevin's fine. He's come back from loads of these matches like this where he's pretended that he's going to quit or that he's going to be fired, and then he's still around. No one can get rid of him because everybody loves watching him so much. So I'm glad that he actually won, and I'm really glad that it was such a fun match. Like Chris, I would like to see him fighting Brock Lesnar or up there with a more of a fighting chance. But I think that he's playing the long game, and I think that, you know, if he's going to do it, he might want to do it with Sami Zayn. You know, he might actually want to do it with his best friend. And what would be absolutely beautiful is to see, you know, him and Sami, you know, with the tag team titles, as, you know, like in the future. That's kind of where I see him going. So that's my prediction for when we're doing this in 5 years' time.
so you both want to see Kevin Owens in a more prominent role in the future. And now that he's got his new babyface character and seems to be getting quite a few wins under his belt and winning, you know, key matches like this one against Shane McMahon, hopefully, but he could be in contention for championship gold in the future, no doubt. But a match that I thought was one of the best matches of the night was the match between Charlotte Flair and Trish Stratus. So this match kind of really surprised me. Was a match that I wasn't particularly looking forward to going into it. I thought that Trish has obviously seen better days. Charlotte Flair, you know, we're used to her usually being in contention for some championship gold or another. But in this match, Trish definitely took the match to the Queen with Hurricane Rana off the ropes in the early stages. This match soon went to the outside where Charlotte dropped Trish off the ring steps, with Trish landing hard face first on the steel before being launched into the barriers at ringside. So when they were stood in the ring together, you may have noticed there was quite a big size difference between Charlotte and Trish Stratus, and Charlotte definitely dominated in terms of the size and strength angle here. Charlotte spends the next few minutes, I've put down here, bullying Trish in the ring until Trish turns with repeated punches. Charlotte connects with a sweet boot to the face of the former 7-time champion, sending Trish hard off the ring apron to the outside. Charlotte then goes for a moonsault, but the Hall of Famer moved to avoid the moonsault before reversing a powerbomb attempt from Charlotte into a brilliant Hurricane Rana off the top rope. So another move of the night there. Trish then takes the Queen by surprise, executing her own figure 8 leg lock on Charlotte, making Charlotte almost submit with her own move there. Trish then gets a close near fall with her own finisher, the Stratisfaction. The crowd are really getting behind her Toronto favourite with a "This is Awesome" chant. Both women trade chops and kind of punches before Charlotte floors Trish with a big boot before applying her own figure 8's leg lock for the submission victory. So another really fun match. But to this point, I think this is probably my favourite match of the night, probably the best match of the night up to this point, with Trish showing a lot of resilience, very nearly coming away with the victory on a few occasions, but in the end it was Charlotte Flair who was just too strong for the former 7-time women's champion. Trish got a well-deserved standing ovation from her own crowd at the end of the match, and the thing that impressed me most about how this match seemed like a fight. It did seem like a really good fight between two credible wrestlers, and by the end of the match, both women felt like they had been through a fight as well, for sure. So I just really enjoyed kind of the realism of this match, and they both took their punishment, but the Queen came out on top. Chris, I'd love to know your thoughts on this match between Trish Stratus and Charlotte Flair.
Yeah, excellent match. At first, I thought that Trish had a little bit of ring rust. Some of the early moves didn't quite gel. It looked like they took a minute to get used to each other. But after that, I think they pulled off what could be a classic SummerSlam match. And really, I think if we watch it again in a couple of weeks, we might even see a lot of stuff that we didn't even realize was so great about it. Charlotte had some really big attempts of a moonsault that she missed, and there was a lot of Hurricane Ranas flying around as well. Like you said, I think it was just a real fight, and you never really knew if Trish was going to come back to lose. So I felt that it was just really, you were kind of on edge and not knowing who was going to win it throughout the whole time, and they really sold that during the entire match. So yeah, no complaints from me. I thought it was excellent. Definitely up until the night, like you said, this is probably the best fight of the night. So yeah, really solid, really strong performance from both of them, and yeah, whatever Charlotte's journey is now, I think is she's proving that she can do it, and she's proving to a lot of people that it isn't just a name anymore. And I know she's been spending the last year or so trying to do that, but to get someone like Trish to come back to have one of these kind of dream matches, and for both of them to really pull it off is not an easy task. So yeah, they did well. Really good.
Good points. Heather, what about yourself?
I didn't think it was very good. I didn't think you were both going to say that. I thought everyone. I saw the ring rust, and to me it felt like Charlotte was carrying Trish, and that made me really disappointed, because I'm a newer wrestling fan, so this is me watching. I've kind of grown up more with Charlotte Flair, if you like, than I have with Trish Stratus, but I'm not a huge Charlotte fan anyway. So I saw some of the botched moves and some of the time in between the moves, and what I really loved about how they recovered from that is how vocal Charlotte got. So Charlotte went in there and she started like having a go at Trish, and really, really kind of trying to get something out of her. And a part of me was just like, I'm watching this going, they rehearsed this, they choreographed it, and they've forgotten what they're doing. And now it's just embarrassing. So for me, I felt like I could watch a completely different match. I didn't think it was very good at all.
Fair enough. No, wrestling is all about different opinions, but that's fine. But I think a lot of people are kind of coming away from this match thinking that it was great to see Trish Stratus back in the ring after so many years. Now, I know that she was at the Evolution pay-per-view last year, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe that she was also in the Women's Royal Rumble, if not this year, possibly last year. So she has kind of made little comebacks of sorts, but this was kind of her biggest match in several years, possibly since she retired more than a decade ago. But like I say, two big names here, and it looks like Charlotte Flair is kind of not just defeating today's stars, but defeating yesterday's stars as well. So let's move on to the next match, and this one was for the WWE Championship. Kofi Kingston, who we remember kind of won the championship in that very, very memorable match against Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania versus Randy Orton. So according to the narrative, this is a feud 10 years in the making, within a couple of minutes of the match, we see Randy Orton launch Kofi from the top turnbuckle down hard onto the guard railings down below before dumping Kofi onto the announce table at ringside. So a really kind of hard few minutes for Kofi in the opening couple of minutes here against Randy Orton. We're reminded that Randy is a current 13 times WWE or World Champion, with only Triple H, Ric Flair and John Cena having won more World Championships than the Viper himself. Randy dumps Kofi onto the announce table for a second time before being rolled into the ring for Randy to get a 2 count. Kofi strikes back, leaping from the top turnbuckle with a tornado DDT. Kofi hits a trust fall from the top turnbuckle, from the top rope onto Randy on the outside before connecting with a flying crossbody for a 2 count. Randy changes the momentum of the match by with a draping DDT for a 2 count of his own. But when Kofi looked to be making a comeback, Randy catches Kofi in midair with an RKO from out of nowhere, with Kofi saving his title by rolling out of the ring to prevent Randy from being able to cover him. Then, with both wrestlers on the outside, Randy starts to mock and humiliate Kofi in front of his family before both men get into a huge brawl around the ringside area, leading to a double count out to end this match. So the match kind of ended a bit prematurely when it was just starting to get good. Kofi, obviously upset with Randy's action, goes a little bit crazy, utilising a kendo stick which he finds underneath the ring. Why there's a kendo stick under the ring, I could not tell you, but used it to beat Randy Orton with, of course, drawing a close to this championship match segment. So the match was good, and it was getting better before its double count out conclusion. However, I'm sure that we'll see a rematch between these two at the next pay-per-view, especially when you take into account how this match ended. So Heather, starting with you, Kofi Kingston versus Randy Orton. It's obviously it's kind of rather disappointing conclusion, is obviously leading us to a rematch of the next pay-per-view. But what did you think of the match as a whole anyway? Over to you, Heather.
Yeah, it was all right. It was one of those ones that because we don't tend to get a lot of time in the evening, so we weren't going to watch the whole thing last night. This is one of the matches we decided to watch today, and I'm actually a bit disappointed that we didn't watch it yesterday, because it was quite good and we weren't expecting it to be as good as it was. There was a lot of brilliant acting from Randy Orton, where at one point when he was being kind of dazed around the ring, I was like, are we sure that he's not just drunk or something? He just looks really, really weird. And I feel like I probably underestimate Randy quite a lot, because he's one of those kind of, throwback champions that's still in the game, and I don't think I've really seen him have many amazing matches in recent years. And so I'm actually quite excited to see what this might do for Randy and Kofi in the future. It was a lot of fun. They're both very talented. An RKO is an interesting move, like when you really look at it, because when he did do the RKO out of nowhere, it kind of looked to me that he was just giving him a quick hug as he kind of fell towards the ground, which I like. Always up for a hug. So it was a lot of fun. I don't like it when Randy was like taunting Kofi in front of the kids. I was very angry with him then for doing that. But it is all part of the storyline, and there are going to be a lot of people watching that who go get more angry at him. So it helps to kind of to make this something that people are going to be interested in, which is why I'm all right that it ended how it did, with a double count out. Chris, you saw that roll up happen, and you were like, he saw that first roll up and he was just like, no, so angry this might end. Were you happy with how it ended in the end?
Yeah, so I'm notoriously, I hate title matches that end in a roll up, like to be the finish. So when that happened, I thought they were just going to do like a quick, Kofi stole it out of nowhere or whatever. and I was just kind of, I thought that was going to happen, but luckily it didn't. And then I didn't see the count out coming, because I think we see so much emphasis on when there is a count out now, you see the count to 10. And I thought they did a really good job, especially with maybe the editing and the directors actually deserved the good job for this. But you didn't see the referee counting. The match became secondary to Randy Orton taunting Kofi in front of his family. And some of Orton's best storylines in the past were the ones that got very personal. And I think that that's what I thought that was good, even though it might be an unfavorable ending to the match. It definitely did feel like it ended prematurely, and it felt like it was getting better and better as it went along. So I could have watched the match for another 10 minutes. But the fact it ended with that bit of a storyline makes me want to watch the next match even more. And I can't say that about any of Kofi's other title defenses. So I think this kind of dynamic that they have going on could be really exciting and could be really good. I just hope it isn't a longer kind of game plan to get Evolution back together to fight the New Day. but that's probably just the cynic in me that just doesn't want that.
I'll watch that. I'll be well up for that.
But I thought it was a great match. Loads of great spots in there. Really good moments. Yeah.
What do you think about the trust fall? If I was Kofi's opponent, I would just kind of stand to one side. I wouldn't stand there to take that.
No.
Wow. All the bumps they take, that's probably not the worst of it.
There we go. Anyway, I think one of the biggest talking points coming out of SummerSlam was what we're going to talk about next. And the advertised match was Bray Wyatt's new character, The Fiend, which has been building over what seems like many months now, thanks to skits like the Firefly Funhouse and kind of Bray Wyatt's introduction to the Fiend over many weeks on that show. But it was advertised as The Fiend versus Finn Balor. So Finn Balor makes his entrance before we get the debut of and the mesmerising entrance of The Fiend. And it has to be said that the entrance of The Fiend is simply out of this world. It comes out to an altered version of his original theme, of Bray Wyatt's original theme, but with the lantern made out of Bray Wyatt's head and, of course, the mask of The Fiend itself, which is something out of everybody's nightmares. There's zowie wowie chants from the fans before the match even got started, but the Fiend dominated Finn Balor in this match with clubbing blows to start off with before grabbing Balor's head and snapping it around as if he was trying to break Balor's neck. The Fiend drops Balor with an enziguri, but Balor made a brief comeback, was able to strike with a sling blade. However, Balor was unable to hit his finisher, his trademark coup de grace, as the Fiend catches Finn in midair with the mandible claw, which of course is the infamous finisher of Mankind, of course, and with the Fiend's fingers inside the mouth of Finn. The Fiend actually pinned Balor's shoulders to the mat for the 1, 2, 3, and after the pinfall victory, the lights go out. We hear some laughter over the speakers. The lights come back on, and with a single spotlight focusing directly onto the Fiend, looking over his shoulder before the lights go out again, and when they come back on, the Fiend is nowhere to be seen. So I'm sure that my description of what happened here failed to give this segment any justice at all, especially with the Fiend's entrance, his look, his dominance against Finn Balor. But whatever we witnessed was unlike anything I've seen before. So starting with you, Chris, the Fiend versus Finn Balor. It was a quick match. I think it was there more to get over the character of the Fiend and his fantastic entrance. Does this mean that the Fiend could be kind of pushing the boundaries to what is deemed acceptable in the WWE nowadays? And are they kind of pushing that PG era out of the window for something a little bit more adult based? I don't know, but this was probably not kid friendly is what I'm trying to say, especially the mask and the kind of rather spooky entrance and the new Bray Wyatt lantern, head lantern. But give us your thoughts on this kind of what happened here then.
Well, it was definitely creepy, that's for sure. I thought Yeah, excellent entrance. Personally, I did like the older version of the theme tune. I thought it was a lot more of the crowd seemed to get behind it more, and that made it such a great atmosphere. And this was, it felt unhinged, which is definitely the vibe that the Fiend should be going for, because that's a little bit more of what that character has to offer. I really liked the Bray Wyatt head lantern. I don't think there's many people that won't think that that's a great idea. I'd love to see if when the Fiend beats people in the future that he ends up using his previous opponent's head as the lantern. So maybe seeing a Finn Balor lantern in his next match, that might be a good thing. Almost like when Rick Rude used to wear kind of like your girlfriend or your wife on his trousers. It would be a good little ode back to some of those beatings, and just something a little bit more Undertaker-ish towards it, where you used to have the tombstones and the caskets with people's names on it. I think there's definitely something interesting going on that will give us a lot of talking points. Great match. Throughout the match, you could see the Fiend fighting with himself quite a lot, kind of almost as if he was trying to be Bray Wyatt but couldn't be. And I think that there'll be a longer story there. Bray Wyatt being the amount of thought he's put into this character. There's probably something where maybe we'll get a Fiend versus Bray Wyatt match in the future, the same way we had Undertaker versus Undertaker. But
it'd be so cool.
I love it. I love what he's doing. I'd like to see the Demon versus the Fiend. I think that's where this is. Well, it makes sense as to where this is going. And even more important, I think that WWE should realize that the Fiend is something that should only be used on big occasions.
Yeah, very true.
If they keep this for the big pay-per-views every year, I will probably follow this storyline like forever now. But if he ends up like popping up on every Raw and SmackDown, or he's doing every show that they can physically put him on because he's a draw, then I think they're going to probably overuse the character a lot quicker. This should be a kind of 6 times a year. Let's use him for the big matches and give him that aura around it, that it is something slightly more unhinged, something slightly more away from your usual programming. And I think it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, some really good points there, Chris. What about yourself, Heather? What did you think of the Fiend, the entrance, the mask, the match, and the finish?
I thought it was really cool. I'll start at the finish, which obviously one of our favourite wrestlers, massive Mankind and Mick Foley fans here. So loved seeing that come back because it is a gruesome finish, isn't it? It's horrible. You don't want someone's fingers in your mouth, and it can knock you out. So it's quite a scary one, and I like the way it was used here. I think it was right that the Fiend won. He does have the same quality that the Undertaker had, and with the Undertaker getting on, they need to start considering what they're going to do to replace that phenom energy that they have had. I'm really excited for, in a few years' time, when the storyline's been going on a while, for Bo Dallas to come out as some kind of Kane-esque brother to the Fiend in his costume. They could fight each other. They need to. I believe that will happen. So I thought it was really, really cool. Absolutely love Bray Wyatt's mind. He's always been one of the best on the mic in the past, and now that he's able to get across the same thoughts and feelings without saying anything is incredible. So really, really impressive work from Bray, someone who probably will see in the business for a very, very long time to come.
Yeah.
Obviously Finn was there too. He's great. But, like Chris said, I do think this is a big setup for Demon versus Fiend at Mania next year. Be perfect timing for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I really like about this, I think they're going to continue with the Jekyll and Hyde type theme, where you've possibly got Firefly Funhouse Bray doing a lot of the kind of backstage mic work, whether it be around his puppet friends, and then in the ring it's all business with the Fiend, and you'll never see the two together. But so I mean, this is all from the mind of Bray Wyatt. So what does that tell you about him? no, absolutely fantastic moments, and I think it's probably been certainly the biggest talking point coming out of SummerSlam was the Fiend's debut, and kind of the entrance and the lantern, and yes, some really good points from you two. Definitely look forward to Bo Dallas being one of the Fiend's zombie henchmen or something like that in the future. But let's have a look at the main event now. This was for the WWE Universal Championship, and of course, champion Brock Lesnar going into this match against Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins, you may have seen, well, he's been feuding with Brock on and off for most of the year, and of course Seth managed to beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania in the opening match, in a super quick match for what it was, and Brock obviously cashed in on Seth Rollins earlier on in the year to regain his championship, and this was a continuation from all of that. This match, it doesn't open the show, it closes the show this time round, and straight out the gates, Seth Rollins is able to hit a curb stomp for a close near fall, managing to rock the champion almost instantly in the opening moments of this match. Rollins is able to land on his feet from a Brock German suplex before connecting with a super kick. Lesnar then drags Rollins around the ring with a tape that was meant to be protecting Seth Rollins' previously injured ribs from that backstage attack on Monday Night Raw from a few weeks ago. Lesnar then takes control with several brutal German suplexes, including a suplex on the outside. Rollins makes a comeback, drop kicking Brock off the ring apron into the announce table. Rollins then connects with two suicide dives, but Brock manages to catch Rollins in midair before driving his challenger, his opponent, hard into the ring post. But it's Rollins who manages to kick Brock onto the announce table before climbing back into the ring, launching himself from the top turnbuckle, crashing both himself and Brock Lesnar through the table, to holy shit chants from the fans. Then with Lesnar back in the ring, Rollins delivers a frog splash, then a curb stomp, followed by another 2 count. Rollins goes for a second curb stomp, only to be caught by Brock in what looks like an F5 attempt. However, Rollins avoids the F5, nails a super kick, and delivers another curb stomp, covers, and gets the pinfall victory to become 2-time Universal Champion. So this was a really fun match, a fast-paced match, a hard-hitting match, with Rollins fighting hard to overcome the beast, injured ribs and all. This match was definitely one of the highlights of the night, in my opinion, and possibly one of the best matches of the night, in my opinion, with Rollins bringing the entire crowd along for the ride with him, in what was an excellent victory to regain his Universal Championship. So going into this match, I had fairly low expectations because it's a match we've seen once or twice before, and Seth Rollins has never really clicked with me as the big babyface champion, but this match definitely did him a lot of favours. He was definitely over with the crowd. I think his energy and the way that he eventually overcame Brock Lesnar did him a lot of favours with fans that may be sitting on the fence about Seth Rollins as a babyface champion. And he certainly made a believer out of me. I think Brock Lesnar certainly played his part as the big beast very, very well, eventually falling to Seth Rollins. But Heather, starting with you, we've got a new Universal Champion in Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
What did you think of the match? And give us your thoughts on this match in particular.
Well, I really loved it. I like you have I've always loved Seth Rollins, but I prefer him as a heel. I think he plays that character so well. So I've not been as keen as him as a babyface champion or character. But yeah, absolutely thought this match was amazing. Really, really great energy. Some really tough moves from them both. I have to say, when I saw Brock pull the tape from Seth Rollins, and kind of like, he had him like one of those little toys you have that you kind of like when you bounce the ball on your hand like that, and it just kind of goes bounce, like on a string. It reminded me of that. I thought, oh my God, Seth's gonna die. Like Brock's gonna kill him. Like he's the beast. You can't beat him. I thought, oh no, this is gonna be really disappointing for him. So I kind of almost wanted to see him lose this one, and for there to be another even bigger and better opportunity for him to win the championship. But I'm glad that he did win, because I really like Seth. But my favourite thing about the match was Paul Heyman and his face, just his all of what he was doing with his face on the ring. He sat there and he had his hands around his face, all like, when he was looking at Brock Lesnar, and then had his pulling his eyes down, like, yeah, I could watch Paul Heyman make faces at Brock Lesnar all day long.
So there we go. So Seth Rollins was Brock Lesnar's very own personal wrestle buddy.
Yeah.
But Chris, give us your thoughts on this. What I thought was a very good main event.
Yeah, strong main event. Definitely better than the other matches that they've had against each other. I think it lasted around 15 minutes, and it's hard to find a 15-minute match that delivers like this as a main event, that just doesn't seem to gel together. And I thought that this one really did. It went well. Again, like I said and mentioned earlier about what I like about both Goldberg and Brock is that big fight atmosphere, and the feeling that anything could happen, and that it feels a little bit more, a little bit more dangerous. That was definitely there with this. They didn't do anything that was too crazy that felt unnecessary. It all felt very good. My only gripe, and I will mention it because it is a slight gripe, is the build-up was very much like, Seth might have nearly broken his ribs and might not be able to fight. And then during the match, he's backflipping out of suplexes left, right, and center, and diving all over the place. And I think that if they went down that storyline a lot more, then it would have been a similar match to AJ and Ricochet, where Seth was really toying and kind of really fighting through the fact that his ribs were injured. This just kind of felt like we need to create a storyline beforehand, and he's going to have injured ribs until the night, and then he'll be absolutely fine. It would have almost been better if he'd pretended it and then made a joke about it in the match to go, I don't really have broken ribs, I was just playing with you. Like,
but maybe that is what we were supposed to think.
Maybe, but it just that just didn't come off. That didn't come off for me, and I think that was the only thing that took me out of the match slightly, because I was thinking the whole time, hold on, how's he backflipping out of these suplexes with broken ribs? And I felt that that's the one thing that Seth is missing as a babyface, is that he isn't yet selling the injuries that he always seems to have. I think this was the first match that I recognized that, and I don't think I would have noticed it if I didn't see Ricochet do it so well with his knee earlier on. So, a little bit of a penny drop moment for me, but otherwise, actually a really good match. They just didn't need the rib stuff in it. They could have just pretended that his ribs were okay, and I would have been none the wiser.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, for what it was an excellent match. But I do take your point that the build up to this match was the beating that Brock Lesnar gave Seth Rollins a few weeks ago, and the injury to the ribs, and him coming in with taped up ribs and virtually not selling the injury, to be honest with you, despite the punishment that he was taking throughout. But I always think it's a bit of red kind of cloth to a ball when a wrestler wears tape to protect a certain body part. Why would you even? But anyway, let's say Seth Rollins, new Universal Champion. And like I say, I think he went some way to kind of making a little bit of a believer out of me with him as a babyface. It was a good show overall. I thought SummerSlam definitely delivered. There were, I'd say, more highlights than lowlights, to be honest with you. For me, I really enjoyed the Ricochet AJ Styles match. Really enjoyed the Trish Stratus and Charlotte Flair match. And the Universal Championship match was pretty good also. Heather, Chris, what were your highlights? What were your takeaway moments from this year's SummerSlam?
Definitely, I think we both agree the Bray Wyatt face lamp. We're going to be ordering one as soon as possible for the house.
Well, Halloween is round the corner. Yeah. A really good Halloween gift.
I really enjoyed all the women's matches, but the Natalya versus Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. That was my favourite match of the night.
And Chris?
Not so much a favourite match, but a few points that I really do think that I'm excited about is for the future, and that's the first time in a while that I've said that after watching a WWE pay-per-view. I'm excited to see what happens with the Fiend. I'm excited to see where Kofi and Orton go, especially if it goes down the road of a bit more of a personal angle. Potentially excited to see almost the end of Brock Lesnar's run. if at the moment we might not see him for a while. We might see him on Raw. I don't quite know, but it would be interesting to see what happens with some of the other talent that WWE have, and see if they start going into the Universal title mix now with Seth. And excited to see what happens with Ricochet and AJ as well. I think there's a lot of points that will keep me checking in. So they've definitely done their job there.
Definitely. Right. Well, there we go, guys. That draws a close to this week's, or this special episode, this review episode of SummerSlam. So thank you very much for helping out with our Wrestling with Johners podcast SummerSlam review. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Heather. Before we go, I just want to ask, where can my listeners find you on social media if they want to get in touch, or if they want to see what you're up to on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook? Chris, first of all, where can the Wrestling with Johners listeners find you out there? Because you do a lot of things. Other than being Chris Martin, you are, of course, the rapper Half Decent. So tell us a little bit about that and where we can get in touch.
So you can check out my music on halfdecentmusic.com or on Instagram and all social media at halfdecentmusic. Check me out on Spotify, all that sort of stuff. If not, I also have a at Half Decent Hasbro's page, which is my collection of kind of 90s wrestling Hasbro toys, and I just collect them personally, and it's one of my goals to get all of them in the future. So you can follow my journey with that on there if you're a little bit more into the old wrestling toys rather than the hip hop music.
And Heather, where can the listeners find you on social media?
So you can find me on Instagram at h_to_the_pizzage. But if you're looking for Finishing Move, of which I am also a part, then you can find us at Finishing Move Limited Ltd on Instagram as well, which obviously you'll know well by now if you've been an avid listener. You can also find us at finishingmovelimited.com.
Very good. Right, well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Heather. We'll definitely aim to get you back on a future episode fairly soon. But that's it. So I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and shout about this podcast. Tell your friends and tell your family, and keep listening to Wrestling with Johners for all of your weekly NXT UK, NXT, WWE, and all-round weekly wrestling goodness. Without you sharing and subscribing, this podcast can't continue to grow. So hit like, share, subscribe now, people. Don't forget to hit us up on Twitter at @withjohners_pod, on Instagram at wrestlingwithjohners, and search for our wrestling community page. Just simply search Wrestling with Johners. We'll be back again on Friday with our weekly update recap show on this week's NXT and NXT UK, with the final of the NXT breakout tournament taking place on this week's NXT, as well as Breezango versus the Forgotten Sons. So a couple of top matches there to look out for in this week's NXT, and we'll be covering that this coming Friday, and I'll be joined by guest host Kieran Reid. But in the meantime, have yourself a really good week. Thanks again to Chris and Heather. In the meantime, take care and speak to you all again soon.